I want to replace the saying, live in the moment, with instead saying, live in the breath. There's an uproar of people constantly saying to live in the moment. And it comes with the stereotype of quitting your 9 to 5, traveling every day, cliff jumping, and living a picturesque life, which is why I don't like the saying, because it's so connotated with external sources of happiness and an external source of living in the moment. To live in the moment, truly live in the moment, is to live in the breath. I have been buzzing to talk about this because, as you know, the podcast is called Breathe Into, and it's a series, a collection of deepening our understanding of life by literally using our breath to tap in. Because every episode ends with a deep breath, because we are breathing into what we have learned, what we've discovered. The breath is just so beautiful to me, and it's the source of our being. And I figured it's a perfect opportunity to call our attention to our breath. I came up with this name because on my self-healing journey, the journey that we are all on and the journey that we are all coming back to, I found my breath. And it sounds kind of silly, but I rediscovered my breath in an entirely new way. I'd be standing at work, angry or flustered, distracted. I would force myself to just take a second to just close my eyes and breathe in deeply, and then let everything out. And immediately I would just come back to myself and remember what I'm doing here. Remember that my life is not my work. My life is not my job. My life is me in this moment, breathing. And recognizing that breath is recognizing that you are more than just a human being. Our breath, it's magic, it's life, it's source. My mantra for a really long time was always breathe into your power. I would say it all the time to myself after meditations or while I was manifesting or journaling. I would just say it to myself, breathe into your power. And I would say it to other people too, when I could tell that they were struggling to feel their own power. I would say it to them. I would just be like, breathe into your power, breathe into it. Because when you recognize that all it takes is for you to be aware, to consciously breathe into it, you recognize that all of your power is within you, and you need look no further than your breath to find your power. So I would say it all the time to myself, and then I started to realize that in everything that I did, I would look at it as an opportunity to just breathe into it. And yeah, I guess it kind of just manifested into this podcast, into breathing into, and I love it. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so grateful and happy that this is where I'm at right now. And I'm grateful and happy that you're here. So distracted by life and everything going on around us, we forget that we are constantly breathing. Whether you're aware of it or not, but when you call your attention to your breath, you feel alive again. So living in the moment is really living in the breath. No matter where you are or what you're doing, you're breathing. Every moment is just a breath, and it deserves to be breathed into. Whether you're sitting in the grass under the sun, basking, or you're in an intense, heated fight, these are the moments to live in, to breathe in. Connect with the very essence of your being, your life source, and you can fully tap into the world within you and the world around you. This is the power of the breath. So when someone says to live in the moment, choose to live in the breath instead. In Vedic culture, the belief is that you are allotted not time, not years on this earth, but a number of breaths. When you think of life this way, it really calls you to bring attention to your breath. You are given a certain number of breaths in this life. One more time. You are given a certain number of breaths in this life. When I heard that, when I first heard it, I immediately just breathed. It made so much sense. And it also really made me realize that every single breath is a gift. And we shouldn't just be taking them for granted. We take for granted the very fact that we can breathe because we think that breathing is just unlimited, but it's not. You are allotted a certain number of breaths in this life. Every single breath that you take, recognize that you're alive. I don't know all of the science or the facts or studies behind this, but I read it in an article about breathing. Why snakes and tortoises have such long lives compared to us. And they connected it to breathing because their breathing rate is far less than ours. The tortoise's average breathing rate is 4 times per minute, and an average human's is 18 times per minute. Tortoises can have a longevity of 350 years. Now, do I personally want to live that long? Probably not, but I think it perfectly portrays the power that the breath holds. Because they breathe much slower, they are more in control of their energy. The slower the breath, the more relaxed you are. I like to give gratitude as often as I can for my breath, specifically in the mornings. Before I get into my yoga flow, I check in with my breathing and I give thanks for it. And then throughout my practice, I can connect further into my body because I've connected with my breath. It's all interconnected in that way. And then I can go about my day with stability and a greater sense of peace, because when you give gratitude to your breath, to the essence of your being, you recognize that your breath is no small thing. You call attention to the wonder of it. And then everything that comes after it is a gift. Build a healthy relationship with your breath. Become aware of it, what it sounds like, and how it feels. And I promise you, everything else comes along the way. It can be frustrating when you find yourself in moments of anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, when someone tells you to just breathe. And rightfully so, because it's in those moments that breathing is difficult. In those moments when you feel trapped and you feel like your oxygen supply has been cut off and you're basically struggling under the weight of yourself, and someone has the audacity to tell you to just breathe as if it's the easiest thing. But it's in those moments that breathing is difficult, but we are called to tap into our source. We are called to go further within ourselves and find the courage to persevere and to take that breath again and to come back into the flow of life. And it's difficult. It is difficult. It's those moments when breathing is not just breathing. It's so much more than that. But when we decide that we're going to go within and we're finding the courage and the strength to persevere and to take that deep breath again, it's in that moment that the universe really recognizes you and your power, and you unlock your unlimited potential. In the moments of weakness, we find our true strength. You find that strength and you get yourself a deep breath and you're back in. You're flowing, you're breathing, and you're remembering that every single breath is a gift. When you feel like you have nothing, remember that. Remember that every single breath that you take is a gift. So if you want to live in the moment, live in the breath, because your breath is your source of being. Every single breath, the raspy, the powerless, the breath you took that maybe you wanted to be your last and it wasn't. The breath you take when you first wake up and the one right before you go to sleep, and every breath in between. The huffs and the puffs in the midst of anger. They are all you. Use your breath. Don't be afraid of it. Let your breath work for you. Because your breath is God or Allah, universe, spirit. And it is within you, working for you and your highest self. The prana is universal energy. Prana in Sanskrit is breath, but prana is so much more than breath. If you're unfamiliar, the practice of yogic breathing is pranayama, and it is used to regulate the mind through the breath, and the two are very interconnected. Prana, our breath, is a force. Prana is breath, but it is the force that works through us. The sage Vashita described the relationship between the mind and prana in this way. The relation between the mind and prana is like that between the driver and the chariot. Both exert motion one upon the other. Therefore, the wise should study regulation of prana, or vital breath, if they desire to suspend the restless activity of the mind and concentrate. The regulation of breath brings all happiness, material and spiritual, the acquisition of kingdoms to supreme bliss. I loved this because it really makes you think about how our prana is so connected to the way that our mind works. And if we want our mind to not be so restless, if we want our minds to be at peace, we can get there. We can do so by working with our life force, with our prana, with our breath. Our breath is truly so interconnected with our being. Calling on more awareness to the breath gives us a key to our lives. There are studies on breath work, the different practices. There's so many different modes. They are wide and they are vast. But it all comes back to the simplicity that your breath is your source of being. Your breath is your source of being. We breathe into this world, and eventually we breathe out of it. Sometimes I'm just in awe of how we as a society have managed to distract ourselves so fully that we resort to drugs and alcohol and pharmaceuticals before we dare to take a deep breath. Call attention to your breath and notice as the universe answers. When you live in the breath, you'll never again have to force yourself to live in the moment because you're already there. I hope this gives a little bit of insight as to why the podcast is called Breathe Into, as to why every episode ends with a deep breath before I send you back on your way, back into the world. Today's breath is extra special, cultivated with even more love and awareness for our source of being. So as we're breathing into our breath, our prana, recognize that you are given a certain number of breaths on this earth, and your breath is your source of being. Breathe in to breath. Inhale. Exhale. Release all of the stagnant energy inside of you. Your breath is your source of being. Thank you so much for breathing with me today. I love you.